thing that I have been consistently reminded of over the years as I've been doing this work is that knowledge doesn't necessarily equal a feeling of empowerment in order to be able to actually create change in your life. But do you know what does? Tools. Tools give you a sense of power, give you a sense of understanding, and gives you something to actually sink your trust, first of all, into, but also your understanding and your ability to commit to something. The diet world does not offer tools. The diet world gives you a recipe of what to eat, what not to eat, more specifically, when to eat it, how often to eat it. But it doesn't generally set you up with tools that you can then carry into the rest of your life. That's just one of the ways that the diet world sets us all up for this continued reliance on something outside of ourselves to make us feel like we're free and healthy and awesome and sexy and amazing in our body. So tools are one of the most important aspects of my program and the work that I do with my clients. My intention and goal and vision is to bolster all of my clients, not only with knowledge that might be missing or that might seem confusing or conflicting. Bolster them with knowledge. Help them get so deeply in touch with their body and system that they understand how and what their body needs. And then infuse them with tools. And I'm constantly referring to your tool belt during the program as you're working with me, because the one of the arts of health transformation is the art of listening, and the ability to deeply tune into your system, understand what it's telling you, and then have the tools to respond to its needs. That is the pathway to diet freedom, 100% right there. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 arts of what makes up a true health transformation, and what sets a transformation apart from doing just another diet that may or may not, most likely will not get you to the place that you want to be in your body, in your capacity for joy, in your experience with life, and even with hard and fast things like getting your blood pressure down or getting your blood sugar levels down, seeing the number go down on the scale. These 4 arts are absolutely the things that will set you up for such a radically different experience than what you likely have ever had or could ever possibly have with another diet scheme. The 4 arts of true health transformation are the art of listening, the art of repatterning, the art of balance, and the art of becoming. Now, in my program, I'm consistently talking about the importance of changing your inner landscape or changing on the inside just as much, or maybe sometimes even more than you're changing on the outside. What I mean by that is, let's take cravings as an example. Before you ever have an expectation of yourself of suddenly giving up a comfort food or something that you've had in your life that has brought you joy or comfort, you have to change the way you relate to that food or that drink, for that matter. So you can't just take away a craving without changing both your relationship with that craving and the story that you hold and attach to that particular food. Now, sometimes the answer is kind of a both and. Often the answer is a both and. Changing on the inside as well as changing on the outside. One of the biggest mistakes that I see in the diet world and that I see people making over and over and over again is that they try to change on the outside, meaning they try to change their eating patterns, but they miss the whole point of changing their relationship to food and on a greater scale, changing the relationship with their body. The two work together, and as they do, they build power and they build longevity. So I'm going to go through the 4 different arts that I just named, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the tools that I teach for each one of those arts. The tools are geared for both internal change and external change, because as we've already established, both are super important, and one without the other will leave you with only half the story and half the answer. So the first art is the art of listening. And this is the first step where I feel diet culture just completely fails us. Because diets don't teach us how to listen to our body. They don't help us build our intuition. They don't help us build confidence in our body's innate ability to modulate itself, to balance itself, to ask for what it needs. We're so busy listening to the experts outside of ourselves that we disconnect entirely from the internal wisdom that lies within every single one of us. And the body, the wisdom of the body. And most of the time in a diet situation, we completely override everything that our innate system is trying to ask of us and tell us. So the art of listening is the first and foremost, most important art. And the tools that I teach my clients to be able to cultivate this art of listening are, as I mentioned, there's internal practices and external practices. One of the most effective and incredibly revealing tools that I teach with regards to the art of listening is intermittent fasting. On the surface, intermittent fasting can look like a weight loss tool that removes you from life, removes you from eating, removes you from the joy of eating, removes you from the practice of eating. But my experience personally with intermittent fasting, and also teaching it over and over and over to my clients, is that it actually has the opposite effect. One of the things that's so true about eating and being a human is that it's a deeply emotional experience. And it should be. Eating is emotional. The fact that our culture shames emotional eaters is one of the things that makes me so upset and makes me really rebel against diet culture and want to be an antidote for that. Because eating is an emotional experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge becomes or shows up when our stories about eating start to speak louder to us than our actual experience of eating. So an example is, I often use the example of being hangry. Now, that term caught on like wildfire. I don't even remember when it was first introduced, but whenever it was introduced, it caught on like wildfire. And all of a sudden, all around me, all I kept hearing was, I better get food in my system before I get hangry. You know how I get when I'm hangry. And what I noticed, even in myself, was that it became this story about what happens to us if we don't have access to food on a regular basis. And, you know, to be honest, I could get into a whole tangent about what a privilege it is in our world, in our life, to have this underlying assumption that we will always have access to food. And it is quite an incredible privileged place to be to even have that problem. But that's another story and probably another class. But the point is that the story about how incredibly addicted we are to having access to food starts to outshine and outweigh our actual connection to the hunger cues of our body. And it's kind of like being a parent, where when you put hard and fast boundaries around your child growing up, then they know where the edges are. And once they know where the edges are, they can more safely operate within that safe space that you've created with the boundaries. And the body is very, very similar. It needs to know where the boundaries are. Without any boundaries, it'll just, give an inch, take a mile. And so the more connected and addicted we become to having access to food, not even actually having the food in our mouth, but a lot of it is a mental relationship with just having access to food. I had this client, her name is Dana, and she's just such an incredibly lovely human. And one of the realizations that she had when working with me was that when she started intermittent fasting, she was able to absolutely clear the story that she had away from her that told her that she always had to have snacks with her. Always, always. So if she was in the car, she had snacks. If she was in a meeting, she had snacks. And what ended up happening in her body because of that is she started to get into pre-diabetic range with her blood sugar because she was constantly putting food in her system, and her body never had the ability to self-regulate. So intermittent fasting is such an incredible tool to be able to help you wipe away, or maybe that's the wrong way to say it, to help you see more clearly where your stories about food are living. And it can serve as an incredible reset button for you to be able to realign yourself with the messages that are actually coming from your body and not coming from your stories. I'm consistently telling my clients to listen to your body, not your stories. But to be able to do that, you have to have the skill to decipher which is which. So one of the tools for the art of listening is intermittent fasting. Another tool that I teach, which is quite common, is tracking. And tracking, what I don't mean is tracking your calories or tracking your macronutrients. That's not at all what I mean. What I mean by tracking is understanding a vision of where you're starting from, what that looks like, what that feels like, the impact that it's having on your body and in your life, and then having a vision of where you want to go, how you want that to look, how you want that to feel, what the impact of that will be in your body and in your life. And sometimes when we're in the midst of making changes, we're making them in a way that we don't often see what's actually changing along the way. So tracking things like how you feel when you wake up in the morning, or how did your body feel when you ate that plate of pasta this time versus when you ate a plate of pasta 3 months ago? Is it different? Has your body shifted? Has your body changed? Are you tracking your blood sugar or your blood pressure? Tracking is an incredibly valuable tool to remind you of where you have been and how far you've come, and to reroute and re-anchor you into where you want to go and where you want to be. So when I work with clients, there's a plethora of ways that we can track. Some people choose to track their weight. And if that is helpful and motivating for somebody, that's awesome. Tracking weight is not an essential part of the equation. In fact, sometimes I would argue it can be more harmful than it can be helpful. But that is absolutely a personal experience and a personal opinion. But my point is that there's so many different ways to track where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. It's such an incredible tool. So those two are examples of external ways that you change in the interest of cultivating the art of listening. Internal practices that we work with in my program are ways that, or tools that allow you to access that feeling state. How can you track how you feel, and if it's changing over time, if you don't have the ability or the skill to tune into how you feel and to be able to decipher that? If you're living your life and you're bypassing the moments in your day where you could spend just a breath or 5 breaths or 10 minutes sitting quietly and feeling yourself, being present with yourself, then you're bypassing the ability to hear and to listen and to get in tune with that sweet, wise body of yours. So practicing 10 minutes of presence every day is one of the most powerful tools. And I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard of incorporating meditation or a moment of silence or just quieting your mind or mindfulness. Many people make this recommendation for a reason. Journaling is another internal practice that I consistently remind my clients that it can be such an incredible tool to be able to track from an external perspective, track from an internal perspective, and also it gives you such an incredible window into what is happening in your internal spaces. We're so busy in our lives, and many times we don't take the time or make the priority to really allow our internal, our spirit, our emotions, all the soft places inside of us to be able to have a voice at the table as to what's happening in our world and in our bodies and in our choices. So the art of listening, 4 tools, 2 internal, 2 external. And I'm adding and changing constantly. But for today's purposes, those are the tools that I find to be the most helpful when you're cultivating a deeper relationship of listening and responding to your system. The next art is called the art of repatterning. And what this talks about is, or what this accesses, is the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. The truth is that a very large percentage of our decisions during our day have already been made before they even enter our conscious thought. And from an evolutionary perspective, this is very, very helpful, right? If you're thinking about what you're going to make for dinner, you don't want to also have to remember to breathe or also remind yourself how to walk. The subconscious mind is absolutely chock full with knowledge and understanding and memories and stories of so many things that you've experienced in your life. And it is kind of the number one decider when it comes to making decisions that aren't immediately present in front of you. So from an evolutionary perspective and from a human perspective, that is incredibly helpful. But what it can do to challenge us is it relies on comfort and already understanding in order to make those default decisions. So any decision that you're making from an unconscious level is based on all the decisions that you've already been making. So in terms of habits or trying to create a change in your habits, what you're working with is literally trying to rewire your subconscious mind. So often I am talking about the difference between your unconscious needs and your conscious desires. So for example, your conscious desire might be to change how you're eating, stop drinking as much, lose 10 pounds, work out every day. All of that is in your conscious mind, and that's your desire. But your unconscious need is still really wired in the fact that after 8 p.m. you eat potato chips or you drink wine, or you don't really need to work out anyway, it's too hard. So the difference or the distance, the gap between your conscious desires and your unconscious needs can create discomfort. And so the process of rewiring your default habits, your subconscious decision making process, is such an important part of the process, because until those two things come into alignment with each other, you're going to feel that conflict happening inside of you, that dissonance happening inside of you. And sometimes that dissonance, that gap between those two, can serve as fertile soil for internal motivation. And it can be the thing to get you moving and changing, or it can be the feeling of overwhelm. And it can be the thing to convince you to just stop. It's too hard. Don't need to do it anyway. It's so much more comfortable to keep on going the way that you've been going. So the art of repatterning is repatterning literally your neurological pathways to take an old default pattern of what felt comfortable and recreate it into a new pattern of what begins to feel comfortable after a certain amount of time, but absolutely serves your health in a better and more productive way. So how do you do that? Well, there's tools. Back to the tools. The number one tool that I teach with regards to repatterning the subconscious mind and the default habits that are so ground into your mind right now is what I call the interceptor. And without going too far into the nervous system or how it works, I will just say that when the subconscious mind is at work, it's on a mission. It is forward thinking. It knows exactly what it wants, why it wants it, how to get it, what the outcome will be, and it's going for it. So you need an interceptor. If you're going to repattern that process or that pathway, you need something to come in and intercept that subconscious or default pattern and say, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't work anymore. Remember, people? Remember, body? This doesn't work anymore. So what is this interceptor? Well, it's actually 3 different things. First, you have to notice when it's happening. You have to notice when you're in the process of making a default decision. An example that I often give is when you show up to a party and maybe on the way to the party you're thinking, I'm not going to drink tonight, or I'm not going to have any sugar tonight. I'm not going to have the cake. I want to honor my body, and I don't want to have any sugar or alcohol. And then you get to the party and you're talking and you're laughing and you're in your mode, and before you know it, you're taking a drink of your champagne or you're eating the cake, and it wasn't even a conscious thought. Well, your conscious desire was to show up to the party and not drink and not have sugar, but your unconscious need was like, we're already doing that. You've already made the decision on a subconscious level that you're drinking the champagne and you're eating the cake. So you have to be able, the first step is you have to be able to notice when it's happening. Oh, I feel myself, I'm aware of myself going to the cake table to pick up a piece of cake. The next step after that is identifying. And what I mean by that is identifying what's happening in your mindset and in your body, more importantly. What's going through your mind? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling like you need something to help your sociability, so you want to grab that glass of champagne? Or maybe you want to fit in and you don't want to stand out in the party by saying no thank you to the cake. Sometimes noticing where that lives in your body can be the most powerful piece of information. Do you feel it in your chest? Does it feel like pressure, or is your heart beating maybe a little bit quicker? Noticing what's happening, identifying where it's living, maybe where it comes from. And then the last step is to transform it. To transform that thought pattern from the subconscious default pattern into a conscious, aware, choice-based decision, one that's in alignment with your vision for yourself, with how you want to honor yourself, with your self-love practice, and with your goals. So in order to transform this moment from a subconscious default pattern into a new one, first, take a breath. Breathing is the most powerful interceptor of all time. So take a deep breath and remember the bigger vision and the bigger story of why you would ever even choose or think of choosing not eating the cake or drinking the champagne. Then you reaffirm your pathway forward. You reaffirm, yes, I actually do want that vision of myself that's 10 pounds lighter or 50 pounds lighter, or the vision of myself that doesn't have to worry about a pre-diabetes diagnosis. Reaffirm that vision and reaffirm the pathway that you've set to get you to that vision. And then you make a conscious choice. You make a choice that is in your conscious awareness. And you know what? To be honest, sometimes you might choose to eat the cake. And sometimes you might choose to drink the champagne. And you might choose to do both. And sometimes that will be the case. And that is okay. That's called life and being human. The important part of cultivating the art of repatterning is having the tools to know how to get yourself from a default, unconscious choice into a place of conscious awareness where you know you're making a decision based on your vision and your honoring of yourself. Another tool that I teach in the art of repatterning is deconstructing cravings. We've already talked a little bit about cravings, but deconstructing your specific cravings can be an extremely powerful tool. And this is an example of something that happens both internally and externally. So, for example, you can have cravings that are physiologically based, meaning you might be deficient in magnesium. So you're literally craving foods that your brain is telling you will boost your magnesium. The challenge is that the brain is so connected to story and cravings and comfort that it'll take a nutrient deficiency like magnesium and create a food based on your stories about what you like and what makes you feel comfortable, and it'll tell you to eat that. And so part of the teaching is around being able to understand, okay, what could my body be craving on a nutrient level? And I know what it's telling me I think I want to eat, but what should I actually eat instead? And that's knowledge. The other side of cravings is that they're very emotional. I would say a very high percentage of food cravings are based and rooted in an emotional need, especially if you're in a place where you're giving your body a really nutrient-dense diet. Then oftentimes, if you're experiencing a craving, it's coming from an emotional desire. So the skill lies in the ability to, first of all, decipher, is this a physiological craving or is this an emotional craving? And regardless of which one it is, be able to have tools in your tool belt to offer yourself whatever it is that you're needing. Because again, eating is emotional. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. So if you're having an emotional craving, get to the root and get clarity around what it is that you're actually craving. Is it love? Is it connection? Is it affection? Those are core needs that we have as humans. And sadly, our culture doesn't support A, being in tune with that, B, asking for what we need, and then C, not having guilt about creating a scenario where we can fulfill that need. So the art of repatterning is another crucial component in creating a true health transformation. The next art is the art of balance. And this one's very important for longevity. Another challenge that I have with the diet world is that it's all based on the short-term mindset. They don't teach you how to live out the rest of your life not relying on a diet. And that is not freedom. That is not liberation. That is not empowerment. That is keeping you stuck in a cycle of relying on something that is restrictive, but doesn't teach you how to integrate and how to create balance so that you feel like you are participating in life. You know, what if you went to that party and it was a birthday party for your best friend? Do you want to not share a piece of cake for her birthday? Part of life is being able to shift and move and flow with what life asks of us and what experiencing life feels like. None of us want to be in food jail for the rest of our lives. None of us want to feel like we can't eat another piece of bread or have some ice cream when we want it. So the art of balance allows you to create a sustainable system that's based on listening to your body, understanding your stories, making conscious choices, and building in the ability to shift and move and flow with life. So some of the tools that I teach within this art of balance is how to build in breaks. How do you build in the capacity to just not be so focused on nutrition and calories or weight or food, because it's exhausting? How do you build in a sense of balance to where you feel empowered to know what you want to eat in order to care for yourself and what you want to eat in order to be part of life? So building in breaks. There's also an 80-20 rule that is very common around the nutrition world that is a tool that can be really, really helpful. And then another tool that I teach is what I call the riverbed. And without going into it too much, it really, really is a wonderful example of how your vision that you hold for yourself, I relate it to the ocean and the journey that the rainfall has as it comes down from the clouds, falls, takes form in water as water, joins the rivers at the top of the mountain, and then makes her way back home to the ocean. That's a health journey. And the vision that you hold for yourself is coming back home to your body of ocean. But the journey that it takes for water to get from the top of a mountain back to her home in the ocean can look so many different ways. Sometimes she'll be a gushing waterfall going for broke. Sometimes she's going to be meandering around an S-curve nice and slow. Sometimes she's going to feel like she's stuck in a little bit of a whirlpool. And all of that, as long as the journey keeps moving you down, moving you towards your ocean body of home, that's what we're looking for. That's what enables you to hold that vision of yourself without getting hyper-focused on a number on a scale or number of calories that you should be eating. So the tools of the art of balance are really geared towards allowing you to see how to shift and move and be your fullest self, while also knowing that you are making decisions and treating yourself with reverence, and you're holding your body as sacred as you want to. The last art is called the art of becoming. And this is an integral piece that builds on the art of balance. Because I often tell my clients the key to never having to rely on diets ever again in your life is becoming the changes that you're making. And what I mean by that is integrating the changes that you've made on such a visceral level that they become who you are, not what you do. And in order to do that, you have to have a very clear understanding and honest vision of who you are. So the tools and the work that we do within the art of becoming are around self-sabotage, the rebel. I teach about the difference between a rebel and a trailblazer, and how the difference between those two can absolutely change the game in terms of fighting up against something that doesn't work versus trailblazing a brand new path, one that's for you, one that resonates with your soul, one that resonates with your lifestyle, with your value system, with your family dynamic, with your particular body, with your desires, your dreams, your goals in life. The trailblazer sees a new way and creates one for herself. She doesn't have to fight against a system anymore because she sees a new path. Another tool, another area of work that we do is around identity. How do you identify in the world? And this is a huge part of transformation, because if you're transforming from a caterpillar to a butterfly, do you know that you're a caterpillar? Do you understand what it means and what it feels like to be a butterfly? And more importantly, do you believe in the inherent ability to transmutate from a caterpillar to a butterfly? Or is your fundamental belief system that once you're a caterpillar, you're always going to be a caterpillar? This identity work is so incredibly helpful and powerful. I have a client who her whole life is dedicated to social justice and dismantling the systems of oppression that live within our communities and in our own individual spaces too. And she is one of the most powerful women I've ever known in my life. And when we got to this place of working with her identity, one of the biggest aha moments she ever had was that if she identified as a change maker and her life was dedicated to dismantling systems of oppression, she suddenly realized that in her not taking care of her body and of herself, she was actually playing in to those exact systems of oppression as a Black woman. The nutrition world, the medical world is not set up to support Black women, and they don't support Black women understanding, knowing, and feeling like they have access to be able to absolutely take care of themselves so that they can thrive, not just survive. And once she was able to connect the dots of that identity within herself, she immediately saw and understood how treating her body as sacred as possible was an act of activism. It was in alignment with her dedication to social justice. And that identity shift changed everything for her. She suddenly shifted from being a victim, and I remember her even saying, like, I feel so sad that I can't eat the pizza. And then by the time we did our interview together after working together, she was saying, I don't even want to eat the pizza. Like, that's not even a question or a source of sadness or FOMO or anything within inside of her, because she had been able to root into this identity of hers. And, that's a very specific example, but I think a lot of us can relate to it if we have become a mother. Suddenly we identify in the world as a mother. And what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of our self-care and how we choose for ourselves versus how we choose for our child or our family? Some people might strongly identify as CEO or very professional or successful entrepreneurs. Well, what does that identity mean for us in terms of how we take care of ourselves? What if we're an artist? What is that identity? How does that impact on how we care for ourselves, the choices that we make? And then the last tool, I won't say the last, but another tool, the last one that I'm going to talk about today in terms of the art of becoming, is really embodying the appreciation that you have for your body. And I've spent a lot of time considering this and reflecting on this, and it was actually prompted by a dear friend of mine, because I've often said body acceptance is what's needed before you can move forward into change. But what I see now is that it's appreciation that's truly needed in order for the space, the honest space to open up, for change to come in a way that will absolutely facilitate that shift into a butterfly. So the 4 arts of what true health transformation means hold tools that you can have in your tool belt, your toolbox, for the rest of your life. So as your body changes, you have the ability and the tools to pull out of your toolbox to go, oh my goodness, I'm entering menopause. I need to listen to my system. What is my system asking for that's different now versus then when, before perimenopause? Or, oh my goodness, I just had a baby. What is my system asking for? Or, oh my goodness, I lost my job, or I got a new job. Changes in life consistently impact our body. And so being in tune with these 4 arts will give you everything that you need. So that the idea of signing up for a 30-day, food restricted, super intense, all or nothing, fail or succeed diet will suddenly seem like the silliest idea. My mission in all of my work is to infuse everyone that I work with the ability and the capacity for them to access joy, clarity, honesty, power, empowerment, self-efficacy, self-trust, self-devotion, so that the diet world is left behind and every single one of you can step more fully into the most radiant, beautiful self and human that you already are. I hope this class has been helpful. Reach out to me if you have questions, if you want more information on any one of the arts. Give me some feedback about how this information has landed with you, and I look forward to hearing